Well, the shelter was an hour and a half from where I camped last night, so if I'd have kept on going, I would have made it here, made it to the shelter. But I wouldn't have seen that view of the fog. Who knows if I'll ever come back to Wayah Bald again. So it's a mixed bag. There's almost nobody on the trail now. I would expect to meet some southbounders coming from Maine. I haven't seen a soul. I think it's about 10 to 1 going north though to south, so there's less. Anyway, thanks so much to the trail maintenance people that have done such a good job weed eating and taking care of the trail. They have done all kinds of extras. Here's a water drain that drains the trail. I've got to get the camera put away so I can pick up my speed and continue to try to put some time behind me on this flat ground. But thanks to all the trail maintenance people. For reference, this is Lick Log Gap, and there's water here. Well, these gloomy woods and this stair step represent 40 miles, give or take, that I've hiked, and so I'm roughly halfway through my section hike to the Fontana Dam. I think it reads Brownington Gap, or Browningtown. We've made good time today so far, this first half of the day. I think there's some peaks in the afternoon, as there always seem to be. But this has been good so far. This is Cold Spring Shelter, right on the trail. And it's got a great water source right in front of the shelter. It's 6 miles from the shelter I'm going to stay at tonight. The nice couple at the shelter, at the Burlington Gap Road, told me, yes, that nice trail is the one. And so I took off down it. And a mile and a half later, a sign said a mile and a half back to the AT. So I lost 3 miles and a bloody, awful hill. Did see a wrecked car. Anyway, that 3 miles that I lost will keep me from going to the shelter right before the Nantahala Outdoor Center. So tomorrow I'll have half a day before I get there to the center, if I can make these 6 miles without wandering off somewhere. At 2:45 Eastern Time, leaving Cold Springs Shelter. The weather is pretty cool up here at about a mile high, and we've got I've got one more climb to go, and then it's downhill all the way to the Nantahala River, which means, of course, that it's uphill all the way out of there. But we'll take care of first things first. I met the trail maintenance team coming from up here, and you can see the work they've done, and they're really good. It was 2 adult men and a young man, about 16. He might have been younger than that, but they were working on the trail, and they seemed to take great pride in the trail. If Burlington Gap is only 1 1/4 miles, that was a long uphill 1 1/4 miles. And then there's 3.4 to Tellico Gap, and then about 2 more to the next shelter, which is where I'm going to stay. Seems like the fog is still with us at 3 o'clock Eastern Time today. So here we are at Wayah Bald. I'm going to go downhill in just a minute. The trail here looks ancient. You can see the trail with no trouble here. Alright, Tellico Gap. The last gap, I believe, before the shelter. We've got a good old climb. This gap drops to 3,000 feet from 5,000, but the next hill is about 4,500 feet. So, you know, it is what it is. This is the first trail magic I've seen on the trail. I just passed a day hiker and a lady that said that it was about a mile to the top and it was well worth it. Well, it's got a lot of nice views walking up here, and it's one of the least challenging, even though it's a tough mile. You can sure tell the lady was a day hiker. You can still smell clean. I imagine she's back in the car throwing up after smelling me. She only had a little way to go to the Gap parking lot to her car, and then back home to eat supper. I've got to get to the other side of this mountain to even find a place to sleep. So we're on it. So here we are in the fire tower at Wayah Bald, and I'll show you the view. Wow. No telling how far you can see. Well, I made it to the shelter. Got my food hanging. I walked a quarter mile up the hill to get water, and there's 3 dudes in the shelter that are from Virginia, and they're good guys. But I told them I would probably want to read, so I just brought my tent up here and pitched it right here. Well, here we go on Wednesday, which is day 4, I believe. It's a nice view for a Wednesday morning. The clouds are below us. This trail follows the ridge for about a mile, and then it starts down toward the Nantahala River, which will be the ultimate gap. The other side of it's going to be, it's supposed to be one of the 10 worst climbs on or sections of trail on the entire Appalachian Trail, because it's so uphill. Must have been an old guy that described it, because they said the downhills were so bad on your knees. Well, it seems like the most knowledgeable people about what's bad on your knees are the old people. Everybody I run into that's retired or partially retired talks about the downhills worse than they do the uphill. But I don't know, the uphill to this bald that we passed yesterday was a beautiful view, but boy, did you pay the price for a mile and a half. Woo! I just passed 3 hikers in their 20s waking up. One had his hammock slung across the trail, and they were enjoying life. And I told them they had a really good place to camp. It was a nice view, and they said, just wait till you see the one a little bit further on. So, sure enough, it's really good. The clouds below the mountains just impressed me as a flatlander. This mountain doesn't give up easily. We're still along the ridge of it. And it's going downhill a little bit, but boy, it's tough. The views are good. Here's the trail, and it goes down there. So I'll be busy trying to not hurt myself for the next few minutes. These mushrooms are interesting. The white things are spores that they've dropped, and all they are is the fruiting body of an organism that lives under the ground. Can be the largest organism on earth, covering acres, and then this is what it sends up to fruit. So mushrooms are the fruit of a huge organism that lives underground. They're not the organism itself. Now these mushrooms appear to be growing out of the side of this tree, so their organism lives in the tree, which means probably the part of the tree that they're living on is dead. However, there are some oak trees that survive due to symbiosis with mushrooms in their roots. They don't survive, but they thrive. Without the mushrooms, they wouldn't do as well. The trail has dropped. We've dropped about 1,000 feet today already in a couple miles, and I believe about 1,000 more down will get us to the NOC. and then it's uphill for a long way. So there's the Rufus shelter, and it's less than a mile from the NOC. I would have made it there yesterday, except I took a 3-hour tour down a valley. So I would have been here this morning. The trail to the NOC is really good, and it drops down to about 1,700 feet, which is the height from sea level of the Nantahala River. So that was quite a decline this morning. Oh, here's the river. Look at all the gates. That's a different kind of fun.